Folks, what the crap's going on? Welcome back to another battle in Total War Rome 2 in the desert this time, and I guess somewhat appropriate to the desert. We're going to see the Seleucids here. Some of their homelands were quite arid. They've got some camel spearmen too to bring in the desert cheerfulness. So let's take a look at what the Seleucids are bringing to the battlefield. They're going to have some Persian light archers up front. These are nice cheap archer units. They don't really have any armor, so to speak, but for the price, it can be quite effective. So we'll see three of those up front. There is the camel spear unit, the other cavalry. I see three Median cavalry right there under center. Median cavalry are an excellent medium melee cavalry, almost said heavy, but they're a pretty good cavalry for the cost, like in terms of getting into a melee with other cavalry. And providing some charge against infantry, obviously. We've got some horse skirmishers here going toe-to-toe with mercenary horse skirmishers. So I guess this is a horse skirmisher on horse skirmisher duel where they've chosen different sides, a civil war of types, between those who preferred the bluish-gray outfits and those who preferred the greenish outfits. Almost kind of a goblin green there, but in any case, there we go. Obviously, the numbers are in favor of Galatia there. Let's take a look at the rest of their army. Celtic slingers up front, there are 4 of them. That could be effective against the Persian archers since they have low armor and no shields. I see a couple of levy freemen, one on either flank, and then a main line of Galatian legionaries. These are pretty solid infantry. Not as good as a Roman legionary, but a pretty good imitation to be sure. And then behind them, there are more Galatian legionaries in a second line. We're going to see some mercenary Cappadocian cavalry. This is a heavy melee cavalry, which should match up against the Medians just fine. Another one over there, and then we've got a noble horse general and a light horse in support. The noble horse general, this is a very heavy melee cavalry, an expensive but very high quality melee cavalry unit. So there we've got the rest of the Galatian army. I don't think I covered everything back here for the Seleucids, so we'll bounce back this way. They have a couple of hillmen behind their skirmishers, and then a main line of thorax swords. The thorax swords would lose to the Galatian legionaries because of charge and weapon damage and attack. Basically, they're inferior in almost every way. I didn't look at melee defense, though. Oh, yeah, they're inferior. Just like... yeah. They match them with armor, and that's about it. So the Galatian legionaries would win in a prolonged battle. We do have a Royal Peltus general here, which is capable of taking on some Galatian legionaries. With the Royal Peltus, though, you always want it to throw all of its javelins first, and preferably you want it to come into a battle without being countercharged. The melee defense on a Royal Peltus is a little bit low, but their melee attack is quite high. Their weapon damage is pretty mediocre, but a dangerous unit if used properly. They are expensive, though. There's another thorax sword in the very back, so a lot of thorax swords in place for the Seleucids, but there's also a lot of Galatian legionaries. And I would say cavalry-wise that I feel like Galatia has an edge. Skirmish-wise, it's possible that Galatia has that edge too. This is going to be a tough fight, I think, for the Seleucids in this case, because the Galatians just have some fairly key advantages. But never judge a book by its cover, or take my word for it. Let's watch the battle and see what happens here between these two factions. I would imagine that Galatia probably wants to get up and begin skirmishing with its Celtic slingers. Take a range. I mean, it's the same range between these two. The damage is going to be way higher for the Persian archers. The slingers have a shield, and they have greater numbers. And right now, the archers are getting some very nice early shots here, which are causing some pretty extensive damage. Galatia does have a number of cavalry units at their disposal here, where they could try to put an end to the skirmishing. Looks like Galatia's kind of pushing and making a bit of a flanking overture, which is going to force a reform here from the Seleucids, which may give them an opening. I like how they're pushing this levy freeman to the flank to potentially cause some trouble as well. If it could get his javelins into the light archers, that would actually not be a bad decision. Those light archers, though, are picking up some pretty serious kills, but if they take a javelin volley here, that's not going to be good for the Seleucids. They can't afford to take those kind of losses. They are just on the edge of range there. There's a lot of heavy push here towards the left flank of Galatia. The right flank of the Seleucids looks like it's going to be the initial battlefield. The hillmen are attempting to dissuade this attack, but there wasn't cavalry close enough, and that light cavalry, it almost connected with those Persian archers. The hillmen had to eat that charge in order to save the skirmishers, and it was a good move to save the skirmishers using the hillmen. Certainly don't want to lose them this early. So after initially taking some pretty sturdy losses, the Celtic slingers are now in a pretty good firing position. Looks like a couple of them are back here pretty far in reserve, so they ought to be fairly safe. Galatian Legionary being moved in to clear out the Hillmen, and I can see a Thorax Sword moving up to meet them. The Seleucids have repositioned to kind of take on the flanking overtures by the Galatians, and the Galatians continue to make such overtures by pushing a couple of more Galatian Legionaries there towards their left, the Seleucid right. You can see these legionaries doing quite well in melee. The Thorax Swords, though, got into them uncharged, which will help considerably. Like right here where these two units are going to trade a charge, the Galatian Swords are going to start winning that fight in a big hurry. It's kind of too bad that the Median Cavalry couldn't come break that charge, but of course there is a Cappadocian Cavalry nearby to deliver the same punishment. But that certainly can be a use for your cavalry. And of course, I mean, the Seleucids do need to be careful with their cavalry here. It's limited, and I feel like it's a little less powerful than the Galatian cavalry, so they are going to need to be careful, but they're going to have to gain an advantage somewhere. Right now, the Slingers are shooting into the flank of this fight. This is not good for the Seleucids at the moment, at least not in my opinion. I don't see them winning any of these engagements. They're just going to get chewed up here, and then Galatia's playing quite reserved with its cavalry, and I think I agree with that based on what I'm seeing here. And the reason I say that is I don't see any reason for Galatia to get in a hurry with its cavalry here, because I think they're going to breach the front lines with their infantry. And then their skirmishers are more numerous and able to support this fight as well. I am seeing some archers start to fire at a legionary over here. That's probably not a bad idea. If they can make it, where it's going to be combat ineffective, that would be good. These cavalry are piled up right on top of those archers, which is kind of blocking their fire, but it's also causing the cavalry to take some of the incoming fire from those slingers, which is chipping away at their health and unit count, so that's not a great call there for the Seleucids, at least at the moment. The Royal Peltist has moved up some, and it is now becoming the object of fire for some of those slingers, and that's not good, because if it turns its back and pulls away, it's going to really get shot up. So at the moment, I'm feeling like Galatia is in a pretty commanding position, but let's see what happens. Galatia is now splitting their cavalry out to the flanks. There's a Median cavalry push over here on the Seleucid right against some Cappadocians and to support some of their infantry, and it looks like we're going to see some charges here coming in by the Galatian noble horse into the Thorax Sword, and the Royal Peltist is kind of pushing forward, looking to get into melee at the moment, so let's see where they head in. I think they've already thrown their javelins, because I didn't see them come out on the charge there. So that Royal Peltist gets a fairly clean charge into battle. That could be interesting, because that's a powerful unit to get up in there. They should be able to rack up a significant number of kills, and here comes that Median cavalry, so the Seleucids are going to need something like this if they want to win. Get in here and take those slingers out, and potentially get into that backfield of the Cappadocians. The Cappadocian cavalry, I say Cappadocians, the Galatian cavalry, some of which are Cappadocian cavalry, is right now distracted elsewhere, so this is a great hit on the slingers, and the rest of the slingers are firing away at it, but they should be able to peel off over here to get a ton of damage done to the skirmishing line of the Galatians. This Median cavalry does not need to get mismicroed. It needs to immediately charge over there. Let's see how the Royal Peltist is doing. It's doing very well. It is crushing this Galatian legionary because it's a bit of a 2-on-1, so the tables are actually turning here for the Seleucids, at least in this general area of the battlefield. Over here, the Seleucids are keeping their backlines safe at the moment. We've now seen the Galatian cavalry pull back to counter these Median cavalry, but some of the damage is already done. And not to mention, that Galatian cavalry is now badly needed in some of these infantry fights where the Seleucids are starting to break through. So this fight is actually pretty even right now. And this Royal Peltist is getting some work done. It's going to intercept this mercenary Cappadocian cavalry. It took some damage there on impact, which is not great. The Royal Peltist aren't quite as heavy a unit as some of the other infantry, so it did take some impact damage, but did effectively help blunt that charge up against the Median cavalry, which is going to be important here. So a nice sacrifice by that general there to get in there and support his troops. That seems like a very Alexandrian type thing to be doing. The left flank of the Seleucids here is definitely a lot more shaky right now. There's still skirmish fire pouring in, and we're seeing the Galatian cavalry start to dominate there. However, some of the victorious units from the Seleucid right are now recommitting back in that direction. And the mercenary Cappadocian cavalry over here did get mostly defeated because of the support of those Royal Peltists. So that Royal Peltist unit is paying big, at least right now. And it needs to, because it's so expensive. They are a little bit faster on their feet as well, so I don't know that they can catch these slingers, but they can pursue them at least okay at the moment. Again, it's showing a pretty even fight, actually maybe a bit in favor of Galatia at the moment, and this noble horse may be enough to help turn the tide. There is still a Median cavalry here that could be used. That noble horse could put a pretty devastating hit on this Royal Peltist general here too. We'll see what's happening, but I mean, right now the power bar at least seems to favor the Seleucids, and I think I kind of agree just based on how quickly the Galatians are losing infantry. However, a very tough moment here as these slingers are going to be firing right into the rear of the general for the Seleucids. This could turn things around, potentially. This could be really bad for the Seleucids. They need to turn and face off against those. Oh no, some of the slingers are actually firing over here. Yeah, get away from those slingers for sure. This Median cavalry is still up. It definitely needs to go run down the slingers and avoid that noble horse if possible, or just engage the noble horse and let the infantry win the fight. One of the two. In a head-on engagement, it would definitely lose. So it looks like the Median is headed towards some cavalry support from its thorax swords, and I'm now seeing the slingers moving forward here. They are likely out of ammunition, or just looking for a better firing position. And it could be the latter. They might be looking for a better firing position and trying to move out of the way of that Median cavalry. Not 100% certain here. Been a pretty impressive showing for the thorax swords. Statistically, they're overmatched, but there was some nice support that started happening after those initial engagements. Based on the initial engagements, and again, I could just be wrong, but based on those initial engagements, I was feeling like Galatia was starting off really strong there, but as the fight went on, the favor definitely turned there. So a little bit of patient play by the Seleucid cavalry. It stayed ready to help defend until eventually getting an opening through the line. This one cleaned up 206 kills, a lot of slingers, and that was very valuable at this point. We see a slinger running away here, so I think the Seleucids win this one because the power bar is quickly turning and army losses could soon take effect for the Galatians. In fact, it is. But an interesting battle to see here. The Greeks face down a fairly powerful barbarian faction and come out with the win, and doing so with swords as a main line. Now, to be fair, the Galatians aren't probably the most powerful barbarian sword faction, but they are pretty solid, and their cavalry is also pretty solid. So they are definitely a faction that you would need to be careful of, I think, as the Seleucids. An interesting build here. No cataphracts, no elephants, no side chariots. Just a more basic, heavy sword line here that did end up working out. So a nice win for the Seleucids. Let's take a look at the post-game and get a handle on some of the statistics. Galatia trying to put up a fight to the end here. I always like seeing that. It's good to see players just not give up on things and give it their all. Sometimes you'll get players that'll run around and just prolong a battle. That's not what's happening here. So we're going to see them go into combat. So again, GG to the players. And let's take a look at the stats here. Pretty impressive showing off of that noble horse for Galatia. And I mean, it wasn't like their Galatian legionaries weren't getting kills. They were. They had let's just take a look at sheer infantry count. It looks like there was only 9 melee infantry for Galatia, and there was 10 for the Seleucids. And then as far as that infantry goes, there was 7 heavy infantry, and it looks like 8 for the Seleucids, 9 if you count the general, and 11 total if you count the general. So the sheer number of melee units here probably just ended up helping the Seleucids outclass, because if we look at kills, the Galatians were doing fine, most of them. You can see the ones that ended up a little bit overmatched. And most of the thorax swords, again, were pretty balanced against the Galatians overall. So the numbers here definitely played out. And if we look at the skirmishers, despite those archers, getting in a couple of tough positions early, they still got a fair number of kills. Looks like a total of about 200 kills. And when we compare that to the slingers, it's pretty equivalent. So the Seleucids got just about as many kills. I don't know the value of them, of course, but And this one, Median cavalry just went totally ham here into those skirmishers. So a fun battle. Hope you all enjoyed this one. Nice game to Hotel Soap and Callie, both of which are excellent players. I love seeing replays from them. So nice to see them here. Again, hope you all enjoyed it. I will see you next time with some more action in Total War Rome 2.